What if Edgar's right? What if it was a mistake to take over Vought, and then... What if I can't handle him?
Patience. Patience, my love. First, you must...
Oi.
Not listening.
With a Season 4 confirmation for Butcher and the boys, we've got a bit to talk about, especially concerning some of Vaught's sadistic superheroes' operations. They all engage in some pretty wild things, as we all well now know, and they're probably not going to be turning over any new leaves anytime soon. But with all the acclaim from the critics for the boys, I think we all secretly like it. So, should we go on ahead and give it a go? Let's take a closer look at some of the twisted comic pages potentially carving their way onto a Season 4 screen.
Delicious.
We've been missing a powerless millionaire-billionaire playboy on the show. The only thing standing in our way may be the real-world special effects expense of rendering a mega-rich man's mechanical suit on screen.
Well, here I am.
But with a couple mentions here and there throughout the series, there may be a way around this. He has been teased a few too many times, and an introduction, even without the suit, may be in order. In the comics, he is a team member of the already introduced and disappeared group, Payback. No power, works in a cave, recruits young boys for battle. You should have an idea of who he parodies. Now, in the universe of the boys, absolute power seems to corrupt absolutely. But without the mighty compound V flowing through his veins, Tek Knight seems to retain a little bit more of his humanity than the other heroes. One of his greatest character flaws came in the form of a growth found posthumously by his coroner during an autopsy. It was revealed how this growth was responsible for his predilection for the inanimate. And, well, everything. But despite some of his lewd attractions, he still retained a hero's outlook and ultimately sacrificed himself to save a woman and her child from being crushed by a wheelbarrow. A rather mundane end to the night, but since he still apparently lives in the show, he could bring a little bit of comic relief to a Season 4 future. If future seasons decide to continue adhering to the comics, even broadly, we will most likely need it. Mr. Marathon is yet another hero that has a couple mentions throughout the show. We don't currently know his whereabouts, only that A-Train took his place in the 7. But we do know that his comic parallel is not doing too well. He may show up in the show as a retired hero to botch some future rescue plan, or he may be shown in a Homelander flashback, as it was Homelander who accidentally decapitated him on paper. Some of the Vought super soldiers do their best to embrace the title of hero, and in an attempt to stop a plane from hitting a city, Marathon urges Homelander to swoop in and save the day. His reasons may not have been entirely altruistic, as the PR disaster resulting from a plane crash is definitely the kind of thing to motivate and concern Marathon. But that still counts as something, right? At least some people might have been saved by a Homelander intervention, right? But no, it goes sort of similar to how it goes in the show. Just add the loss of a certain superpowered individual's top. Mr. Kessler, also known as Monkey. It's a nickname that stuck around due to an unfortunate incident involving a couple of monkeys that found him tempting. You can draw a comparison to the way Butcher owns a dog that can be commanded to engage an enemy. Something rather similar happened to him. He is an informant used by Billy to spy on Vought superheroes, and Billy likes to beat him up, but don't feel bad, as with a lot of characters in the boys' universe, they've probably done something to deserve it. His continuing loyalty to Butcher stems from his peculiar fixations with women who are physically weaker than him. Butcher learns of his preferences and uses the opportunity to do what he does best. He intimidates Monkey and gains valuable information regarding Supe activities and organizations. In the comics, he played an integral part in recruiting Wee Huey to the team. But since we are already way past this point in the show, it's possible a Monkey character debuts as a Mallory replacement. They both similarly function as liaisons between government agencies and the boys. But we hope nothing bad happens to her. While appearing in The Boys Presents Diabolical, we got a first good look at the animated interpretation of Groundhog. At first, I thought hammers for hands might be kinda neat, because your whole life outlook after gaining hammer hands as a superpower changes. Everything becomes a nail to you, and it just simplifies everything. You either hit something or you don't. until I read the comics and saw just how simple it really made everything. If you haven't guessed, he is a play on Wolverine, hammers instead of claws. But he is a little more feral on paper and a little more carnivorous.
You talking to my girl?
Little known fact, did you know that when hawks don't have their normal access to food, they'll eat one another? And Groundhawk does the same, but not necessarily due to the absence of food, more so because he wants to. As a member of the X-Men, G-Men, they are a bit difficult to control. This brings them into direct confrontations with Vought, who decides to eliminate Groundhawk and the entirety of the teams he is a part of. We may yet get to see Groundhawk in later seasons of the show as a sort of fall guy, although I'd like to get to see him around long enough to try some fellow Hawk. He may just make a brief cameo appearance in a Supe group the government or other angry factions decide to deal with. Someone's face is used as a pizza topping and delivered to the boys. Still better than pineapple toppings, this is part of the glorious 5-year plan storyline, and while there was an episode of the same title already released in Season 3, Pizza Face did not show. So, Love Sausage isn't doing too well since his last appearance on the Hero-gasm episode, and there is not much sympathy for the show version so far, but in the comics he's actually kind of a sweet and likable guy. He is one of the few Supe allies of the boys gang and was originally part of the glorious 5-year plan group that existed during the time of the Soviet Union. In his own words, they fought for workers and comrades. While the boys are on a stay in Russia, mobsters decide to send a welcome message to the group in the way only mobsters can do, with pizza, complete with black olives and zesty pasta sauce. Gotta say though, it really is a shame someone left a couple hairs in the crust. Butcher's methods have always been extreme. They say you live up to your name, and many of his actions are resonant with, at this point in the comics, a title. But through all the hardships and losses he has faced, the one that fully sent him over the edge was the loss of his dog, Terror. Never mess with a man's dog, especially when it comes to what the dog represents. And in this case, and similar to another certain case, the dog represents aspects of what is left of the character's humanity. Now, Terror is alive and well currently on the show, and I honestly hope it stays that way. Not only just for the sake of the dog, but for the pure antagonistic turn we may see from Billy if something happens to him. We have already received a few glimpses in the show of how this could happen, and in the comics, it does. There's a real tearjerker moment when Butcher gets ready to leave in the morning and, due to reflex, says out loud, "Come on then, Terror, off we go, mate." When he realizes Terror is no longer with him, he gets up, puts on his jacket, and walks out into the cold world with an expletive. Following up from the loss of his dog and the successful dissolution of the Seven, you'd think Billy might be able to find some peace. He avenged his wife, and there is no more Homelander, clone, son, or otherwise. But over the years of forging himself into the Supe eliminator that he is, the peaceful conclusion he may have once sought no longer exists. With a new, more ambitious goal in mind, he sets out to eliminate all Supes. Even if innocents, super or otherwise, in the way are injured, it is a small price to pay, and every good omelet requires a couple cracked eggs. With the terminal diagnosis, stakes are raised, and time is now of the essence. This just may be the push Billy Butcher of the show needed to do something truly diabolical.
I will. I promise.
Okay, but I'm calling back every 5 minutes until...
So on this new monstrous crusade, Billy realized there would be only a few left that could stop him. So he sets out to stop them first. We have already seen some of the strain between Butcher and the boys on the show, especially regarding some of his methods or secret keeping. When Raging Bull Billy decides to take on Mother's Milk, actually did okay. But Billy was playing for keeps. ends up trying and actually surviving an explosive lunch, thanks to some good old Compound V still active in his system. Billy finishes the job by covering up what is left of MM's nose and mouth. Frenchie and the female don't fare well either. So, all that is left is wee baby Huey. The soft spot left in Billy Butcher's 2 sizes too small heart doesn't let him accomplish his goals in the end. It is Huey who appeals to what is left of Butcher's humanity in both the show and the comics. Their final confrontation takes place on the Empire State Building, where Huey puts an end to the final antagonist-turned-butcher's plans, saving innocent humans and Supes alike. So ends the diabolical leader of the boys. So we now know who Black Noir is or was on the show, and he will not be playing the role of a Homelander clone, whose only goal is to drive the ultimate Supe to insanity so he can do away with him.
It's because deep down, there's a part of you that is still human. No.
Despite this, we may still get to see other characters engage in some of Black Noir's comic book activities. The one moment I'm thinking of specifically is the time in the comics where Noir decides to have a little bit of what Groundhog is having. Homelander's mental state only continues to deteriorate as he searches for and is constantly denied the family he was deprived of as a child. As the cracks in his mental armor deepen, I'm not saying he's going to be the one that decides to chow down on some black olives and zesty pasta sauce pizza, but someone might. And really, it is such a shocking moment in the comics. I know someone on the writing team for the show has pitched a way to at least allude to this demented dish, even if they were fired right afterwards for suggesting it. But who are we kidding? It's the boys. They probably received a promotion. So do you think Homelander's gonna get to try some of that new tastes like chicken secret dish on screen?
And that doesn't taste very nice, does it, precious?
Let us know in the comments what other sort of diabolical mayhem you might like to see brought to live action from the comics.